So center in wherever you are. Here in the room, at home. Centering in on your breath and the physical sensation of being supported where you sit. Allow yourself to feel rooted. We'll begin the meditation today with a sweet, short, powerful little poem from Hafiz, It Felt Love. How did the rose ever open its heart and give to the world all its beauty? It felt the encouragement of light against its being. Otherwise, we all remain too frightened. Picture yourself now as the rose, as an unopened rosebud. Picture the color of your petals, visible above the green of your leaves and stem. You are planted in an open area of a garden. Feel your roots deep in the soil. Imagine it is very early morning. Daylight, the pink sky like it was this morning, is just beginning to show in the east. The night's chill lingers, yet the light brings a subtle eagerness into your flower self. You know with a deep inner knowing, this is the day you will open to bloom. Imagine the sun's rays falling upon you, warming your petals. Imagine the gentle opening of your outer petals, and then the slow unwrapping of the layers of your inner petals. Your blossom face turned toward sun's light. No one has taught you how to open, how to smell so sweet. It is simply your divine nature, revealed and unfolding. Feel your roots taking in nourishment and your beautiful openness giving out oxygen. Opening, blooming, rooted, trusting. bring yourself back into the garden of this room, surrounded by the flowering faces and beautiful beings that you're near. Bear with me while I fumfer with no-line bifocals, a mic, and a stand. Jerry, you're going to have to reorganize your whole self when you get back up here. No one teaches the rose how to bloom. No human gardener gives it clear-cut, step-by-step instructions how to grow thorns or petals, how to share its beauty of the color, its heady scent. Its innate wisdom is already within its very being. Sure, it is affected by the gardener, by outside influence of too much or too little water or light, by hard ground or rich soil, or biting frost that kills. Yet its way of being knows the way to bloom. Antonio Machado says, "Wanderer, there is no road. The road is made by walking." I'd like to take a walk up that hill. Have you ever taken a walk with a toddler or a dog and let them actually lead the way without reining them in? The path, the walk unfolding from the energy of their curiosity. Have you ever just set out for a walk without a specific destination, even in your own city or your own neighborhood, and just allowed yourself to meander? Lindsay Scott, and Roger posts these talks or the inspiration for the talks, depending on how talky it is. He posts the PDF, and on the PDF there will be a link to this song, "The Way Knows the Way." When I had that gift of being on Iona, it was the song that led us from transition to transition. Part of a pilgrimage journey is an awareness of threshold moments, even if it is transitioning from breakfast to our morning circle time, going from the gate at the opening of the property out into the rest of the island or back home to our green shed. I'm not going to sing it. I tried. I practiced it a lot. I was like, yep, no, just not feeling, I'm not feeling that's going to be in my Hallmark movie. But the link to the song is there. You don't have to know the way. The way knows the way. Trust the way. Feel your way. The way knows the way. So that week on Iona, wandering over the road, because there is only one road that runs north and south, wandering over the little hillocks filled with heather and cow poo and sheep scat and meadow grasses and buttercups, the beaches. It was so easy to trust that the road is made by walking. The path is made by walking. Those are our Hallmark movie moments, right, Paul? When everything feels easy. It's easy to trust. This week, the path didn't feel so beautiful. It didn't feel so easy to me. I was listening to my body's wisdom, trying to heal from just a good old-fashioned cold. All of the things that it might have been, it is not. Huzzah. But the tired and listening to my body's need for rest, for working in smaller doses than I was used to working. It's been a week of multiple doctor's appointments with my mom, who will have knee surgery a week from tomorrow. It's been a week of reading news from around the world, from our own nation, that some moments caused steam to come out my ears or broke my heart open. The way knows the way came back to me as a mantra and invited me to let go of the shore and let the water carry me. I also really love when I am hoist with my own petard. That's a phrase I remember from 10th grade English class. When my own messages come back to, remember what you said last week? Remember how love is letting go of fear? That the givingness, the divine givingness, gives us everything as food. And when we relinquish our need to control, when I relinquish my need to control, I can learn from my fear. I can learn from my tiredness. I can learn from my anger. But I don't stay locked down, locked into those storms. The story of the Pilgrim's Ark, which is very alive during that pilgrimage week, but is one that I've talked about here before because it's one that resonates with me over time. Saying yes to setting out on our life's journey is our pilgrim's journey. And that story arc echoes the story arc of the seasons we're in here in the Northeast, and even of the church liturgical year. So for the pilgrim, there's a setting out, there's a dark walk, often into the labyrinth of grief. There's a recognition of this gift that you were longing for, this gift that you were seeking on that pilgrim journey was with you all along. You just didn't recognize it. And then you, with your new eyes, come back home and bring that gift with you. The way knows the way. In Christian churches all over the world today, we are not tied to the lectionary in the same way, but I'm very aware of that rhythm. Today is Transfiguration Sunday. It is the 6th and last Sunday of the season of Epiphany, which happens earlier in January. Diana Butler Bass describes the journey from Advent to now like this, and I just loved the image of this. The spiritual flow of these winter seasons are awaiting light in the darkness, Advent, light overcoming the darkness, Christmas, and following the light to its glorious source, Epiphany. And on Wednesday already, on Valentine's Day, we start the season of Lent. So a different way into that journey that our story arc is a part of. The way of all creation knows the way. That's why those wisdoms echo each other. We've just moved from the darkening days leading up to winter solstice, that longest day of the year that transitions right away to the sun coming back a few more minutes every day. And in a few weeks, we'll experience the spring equinox. Our seasons, our story arcs are echoed in church teachings, in wisdom tradition teachings, in the pilgrim's journey. The way of walking our path, of letting Spirit guide our hands when we're writing letters, when we're making music, when we're sharing our gifts, is what we're called to do. Our inner pilgrim journey of life, Christine Walters Paintner reminds us, we each have a particular way. So there's the rose and the gardener, and we're responsible for the choices we make, which help shape the direction of our lives unfolding. At the same time, we're invited to yield our desire to control that unfolding. The spiritual journey calls us out into the wild places where God is not tamed and domesticated. God is the name of the blanket we put over the mystery to give it shape. There's so many beautiful images for that wildness that calls us into being. We are asked, Christine Walters continues, to release our agendas and discover the holy direction for our lives. God doesn't call us to one particular path that we scrutinize and discover. Again, Paul, you're like list making. I'm going to do this today, and it's going to get done at this time. God instead calls us to the fullness of living. God calls us to the fullness of living, which can be manifested in a multitude of ways. We have to listen closely for what is truly life-giving, and there lies the struggle. That's why I keep coming back to this book. I feel like she's read my mind and heart. What if, she says, when life started falling apart, we opened our hearts to welcome in the grief and fear that arrived? What if we considered them as holy guides and windows into the immensity of God? What if all the painful feelings of loss and disorientation were invited in for tea? What if everything that turned our preconceived ideas inside out was precisely where we found God? My fears about our country are many. My anguish over war and violence, poverty, the destruction of our earth, my worries about my family and my loved ones, my joy and delight in walks with toddlers, the gift of traveling to new places and discovering who I am when I'm a stranger in a strange land, the pleasure of just a walk in my own neighborhood on a sunny day in February, the story arcs of pilgrimage and the seasons and the way shower Jesus. What if all of it is where God is calling me, is calling you? Can we, like last week's Tonglen meditation, and like the rose, like the trees, can we breathe in all of it and breathe it out again as food? Food for our spirits, food for our lives, food for the world. So here's another way to look at the image of a rose. I have Mark Nepo's Book of Awakening, which I've used snippets from him before. I know that this one is from May 15th because it is so dog-eared on my original copy. But I invite you into this wisdom, another image of a rose that can remind us of those deeper truths. The risk to bloom. And then the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk to bloom. That's Aeneas Nin. Mark Nepo says, we all face this turning point repeatedly, when resisting the flow of inner events suddenly feels more hurtful than leaping forward toward the unknown. Yet no one can tell us when to leap. There is no authority to bless our need to enter life but the God within. How often we thwart ourselves by holding tenaciously to what is familiar. It is instructive, if chilling, that in floral shops, the roses that won't open are called bullets. They are discarded because they will never bloom. They have turned in on themselves so tightly that they can never release their fragrance. Yet as spirits in bodily form, we have the chance to tighten and bloom more than once. But even spirits, if turned in on themselves enough, may grow accustomed to being closed. That wisdom, the wisdom of how the rose knew to unleash her beauty. She listened to where the sun was drawing her, the light was drawing her. Can you think of a time in your life when that fear, the fear of change, the fear of growing, the fear of something new, the fear of saying yes to a deeper level of being on your path, held you tight? I can think of a lot of them in my life. We find our way by walking. Walking with God and walking with each other. We find our way by listening to what our joys and sorrows and fears, our heartaches are teaching us. We find our way by trusting that time in solitude and in silence, time in deep conversation and presence, all help us to listen to the voice of God within. Listening to the voice of God within will help us discern, to answer the call, whatever the call is, to answer the questions, what is mine to do in the face of all of those other things? Where are my holy heartbreak and holy imagination leading me? Not only into creating the life of my dreams, but into transfiguring the world that calls out to us in these days when chaos feels like it is alive in so many places of our shared culture. We are the just right people for this moment, because here we are. Spirit does not make a mistake. Here we are. The way knows the way. Trust the way. Find your way. The road unfolds by walking. I am so grateful that we are walking together. We're walking on God's highway. Those songs today, let them lift you and fill you and give you the energy either to be still or the energy to find a way to do, but something that comes from that deep well of your being. Because your spirit, the rose that you are, knows how to bloom. And so it is. Amen.